The mysterious encounter. The morning sky was dark and heavy with clouds, as if the world itself could sense something was coming. People in the city went about their business, unaware of the strange and terrifying event about to unfold. Suddenly, a loud, sharp crack split the air. It sounded like thunder, but it wasn't a storm. People looked up, their eyes wide with confusion and fear. High above them, a massive ship cut through the sky. Its shape unlike anything they had ever seen before. It was enormous, dark, and terrifying, its metal surface reflecting the light in strange, shimmering patterns. The ship seemed to hover for a moment before slowly descending toward the city. The ground trembled as it landed, kicking up dust and debris. For a moment, everything was silent. People stared, frozen, waiting for something to happen. The air was thick with tension. Then, the hatch of the ship opened, and out stepped a figure, small but powerful. It was the alien child, unlike anything they had ever imagined. The child's skin was a pale shade of blue, and their eyes, enormous and dark, seemed to pierce right through anyone who looked at them. They were no taller than a human child, yet there was something about them that made everyone around them uneasy. The alien child looked around, scanning the crowd. Their gaze stopped on one person, a man who had been watching in shock. His name was Jack, just an ordinary man, but in that moment, he felt something shift inside him. The child's eyes locked onto his, and for a brief second, everything around them seemed to fade away. The crowd, the noise, the chaos, all of it disappeared. Jack felt as if he was standing in a different world, surrounded by nothing but the child's gaze. It was a strange feeling, as if the child was speaking to him without saying a word. Jack took a hesitant step forward, unsure of what was happening. The child didn't move, but their eyes never left him. The crowd behind him murmured in fear and confusion, but Jack couldn't tear his gaze away. There was something magnetic about the way the child looked at him, as if they were drawing him in, pulling him closer with an invisible force. Slowly, Jack took another step, then another, until, without even realizing it, he was standing right in front of the child. The moment their eyes met again, Jack knew something was wrong, but at the same time, he felt a sense of calm, as if whatever was happening was meant to be. Suddenly, the alien child reached out a small hand, placing it gently on Jack's chest. Jack's heart raced as a strange warmth spread from where the child's hand touched him. It wasn't painful, but it was unlike anything he had ever felt before. He felt a surge of energy, like a wave washing over him. He wanted to step back, to pull away, but he couldn't. He was frozen in place, staring down at the child's hand. The warmth grew stronger, and Jack's mind began to swirl. Images flashed before his eyes, strange alien landscapes, galaxies far away, creatures and beings beyond his comprehension. For a moment, he felt as though he was no longer on Earth, but somewhere far, far away. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the sensation stopped. The child removed their hand, and Jack stumbled back, gasping for breath. He looked around, his mind reeling. The crowd had gone silent, everyone staring at him with wide eyes. Jack could feel their eyes on him, but it didn't matter. He felt different, changed in some way, but he couldn't understand how or why. The child's gaze softened, and for the first time, Jack noticed something else, something in the child's eyes, a sense of sadness, or perhaps, longing. Before he could process what he was feeling, a voice echoed through the air. It was deep, powerful, and filled with authority. "You have been chosen," the voice said. Jack's heart skipped a beat, his head snapped to the side, looking for the source of the voice. But there was no one there. The child was still staring at him, but they didn't speak. Instead, it was the voice of the alien queen, coming from somewhere high above. Jack's eyes darted upward, and there, on the ship's platform, stood a figure, tall and imposing, dressed in shimmering armor. The alien queen had arrived. The queen's presence was overwhelming, and for a moment, Jack was speechless. The power in the air was palpable, as if the very fabric of the universe was bending around her. She raised her hand, and the crowd, the world, seemed to hold its breath. Jack felt an overwhelming sense of awe, but also a strange fear. The queen's eyes met his, and in that instant, Jack knew something important was happening, something that would change his life forever. "Approach," the queen commanded, her voice strong and clear. Jack didn't hesitate. The child had chosen him, and now, he had no choice but to follow the queen's command. As Jack stepped forward, drawn by an invisible pull, he felt a rush of anticipation. He couldn't explain why, but every part of him knew this was the moment that would define his future. The alien queen, towering above him, radiated an energy unlike anything Jack had ever felt. It wasn't just power, it was an ancient force, older than anything Jack could imagine. Her eyes, glowing with a soft, eerie light, locked onto his, and he felt the weight of her gaze on his soul. "You are the one," the Queen said, her voice echoing through the silent crowd. "You have been chosen, and you will play your part in what is to come." Jack's heart pounded in his chest. He didn't know what to say, didn't even know how to respond. He had just been a man, living his life, and now here he was, standing before an alien queen, being told he was chosen for something greater, something far beyond his understanding. The alien child, standing beside him, reached up and grabbed his hand, their small fingers wrapped around his, and for a moment, Jack felt a strange connection, something powerful, yet gentle. "My son has chosen you," the Queen repeated, her voice colder this time, "and I am bound to respect his choice." The words didn't make sense, but Jack felt an overwhelming surge of energy. It wasn't just in his body, but in his mind too, as if his very thoughts were being reshaped by the presence of these alien beings. The Queen's gaze never wavered, and Jack felt himself beginning to understand something he couldn't quite explain. Something was happening, something that had been set in motion long before today. The Queen stepped closer, her presence growing more intense. "You are a protector now," she said, the words heavy with meaning. "The child is not just a symbol, he is the key to saving us all, and you will guard him, protect him from those who wish him harm." The words felt like a weight on Jack's shoulders, a burden he had never expected to carry, but there was no choice, not really. He had been chosen, and the responsibility now lay with him. "But I am just a man," Jack managed to say, his voice trembling despite his attempts to remain calm. "How can I protect someone like him? I don't even understand what's happening." The Queen's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "You will learn," she replied. "The bond between you and the child will grow stronger with time, and with that strength, you will become capable of things you cannot yet imagine." Jack wanted to argue, wanted to question her, but before he could speak, the child squeezed his hand tighter. Jack looked down at the small alien, whose eyes were now filled with something deeper than innocence. There was intelligence in those eyes, a knowledge far beyond Jack's comprehension. The child's gaze shifted from Jack to the Queen, and then back again. The Queen's smile faded slightly, her expression growing serious. "You will face challenges ahead, ones that will test your limits," she said, "but you must not fail." The Queen raised her hand once more, and Jack felt a powerful pull as if the very air was being drawn into her palm. He stood frozen, unable to look away. Her hand glowed with an otherworldly light, and the air around them seemed to hum with energy. "This is not just a journey for you, but for all of humanity," the Queen said. "You will be the bridge between your world and the many others that await, and you will protect the future of the galaxy itself." Jack's mind was spinning, trying to process what she was saying felt like trying to hold on to a cloud. The weight of her words pressed down on him, but deep inside, something stirred, a part of him that had been dormant, something that recognized the truth in her words. He didn't know what the future held, but standing there, with the alien child at his side and the Queen's command weighing heavily on his shoulders, he knew one thing for sure: his life would never be the same. The Queen stepped back, and for the first time, Jack noticed something in her expression. It was a flicker of doubt, a brief flash of uncertainty that vanished as quickly as it came. She turned to the alien child, her expression softening. "Go with him now," she said. "The journey ahead will not be easy, but it must be done." The child nodded, and then, without a word, turned and started walking away. Jack hesitated for a moment, still unsure of what he was supposed to do, but then the child stopped and turned back, their eyes meeting Jack's once more. There was a silent understanding between them, as if the child was waiting for him to follow. Jack nodded, a sense of resolve filling him. He had no choice now, not if he wanted to survive what was coming. He stepped forward, walking toward the alien child, the bond between them growing with every step. As he followed the child, the crowd parted, and Jack couldn't help but feel the weight of their gaze on him. They were all watching, waiting, as if the entire world was waiting for him to make the first move in a game that was much bigger than he could ever imagine. And so, Jack took that first step, not knowing what would come next. but knowing that he had already crossed a line, and there was no turning back. The Queen's revelation. The ground beneath Jack's feet felt heavier with each step. The child walked ahead, their small form moving with a quiet purpose. Jack followed closely, but his mind was racing. He kept glancing at the alien child, whose movements were calm, unhurried, as if they knew something he didn't. The air around them felt thick, charged with energy, as if the world itself were holding its breath. They walked toward a strange structure. An alien ship that seemed to hum with a life of its own. It was unlike anything Jack had ever seen. Its surface was smooth, glowing softly with colors that shifted like a living thing. It seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. When they reached the entrance of the ship, the doors opened without a sound. Jack stood frozen for a moment, taking in the sight before him. The inside of the ship was massive, more like a grand hall than a vehicle. The walls were lined with strange symbols, glowing softly in the dim light. They moved further inside, and Jack felt an overwhelming sense of awe. The Queen was waiting for them, standing at the center of the room. The child walked toward her without hesitation, and Jack followed. The Queen looked at Jack with a gaze that felt as if she was seeing into his very soul. "You have questions," she said, her voice softer now, "but the time has come for you to understand." Jack nodded slowly, unsure of what to expect. The Queen raised her hand, and suddenly, a map appeared in the air before them. It was a map of stars, of planets and galaxies, stretching far beyond anything Jack had ever imagined. "This," the Queen said, "is the galaxy we inhabit, but it is not the only galaxy. We are part of something much bigger, something older. There are forces at play that you cannot yet comprehend, but you will." She pointed to one particular planet on the map, a bright red dot in the distance. "This is the place we must go. It is where the power lies, the key to saving or destroying everything we know." Jack's heart skipped a beat. The planet was far from Earth, far beyond any place Jack had ever heard of, and yet, he could feel something pulling him toward it, as if his destiny was tied to that distant world. "But why me?" Jack asked, his voice low. "I'm just a man. Why have I been chosen for something like this? What do I have to do with this power?" The Queen turned to him, her expression serious. "You are more than just a man, Jack," she said, her voice carrying a weight he couldn't ignore. "You are part of a prophecy, one that was written long before you were born. The child you protect is the last of his kind, and his bloodline holds the power to shape the future. But that power is not just a gift, it is a curse, one that will either save us all or lead to our destruction." Jack's mind was reeling. He couldn't comprehend what she was saying. It was too much to take in, too many questions without answers. "The child," Jack said, his voice trembling slightly, "what exactly is he?" The Queen's eyes softened, but there was still a sense of great power in her gaze. "He is the key to unlocking the power hidden within the stars, the last of an ancient race, a race that was once the guardians of this galaxy. He alone can tap into the energy that lies dormant in the core of every star." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But there are those who seek to destroy him, to claim that power for themselves. They will stop at nothing to make sure he doesn't reach his full potential." Jack's mind raced. He felt as if he had stepped into a world that was far beyond his understanding. The weight of his new responsibility pressed down on him, heavier than any burden he had ever known. But there was something else, something in the Queen's words that stirred something deep within him. He had been chosen for this, for a reason. He didn't know why, but he couldn't ignore it. He had to protect the child, to keep him safe, no matter what it cost. The Queen stepped closer, her eyes locking onto Jack's. "You must understand," she said, her voice a whisper, "the fate of this galaxy, and many others, rests in your hands. If you fail, it will not just be Earth that suffers, it will be every living thing in the universe." Jack swallowed hard, the weight of her words sinking in. "I don't know if I can do this," he admitted. "I don't have the power, I don't even understand what's happening. How can I protect him?" The Queen's expression softened. "You don't have to do this alone," she said. "You have allies, you have the child, and you have something else, something inside of you, that is awakening." The child, standing beside Jack, looked up at him, their eyes filled with a knowing, a quiet certainty that Jack couldn't ignore. He looked back at the Queen, unsure of what to say, but in that moment, he knew one thing for certain. The journey ahead would be dangerous, but it was a journey he had to take. "Then I will protect him," Jack said, his voice steady now. "I will do whatever it takes to keep him safe." The Queen nodded, her eyes shining with approval. "Then you have made the right choice," she said. Jack didn't know what would come next, but one thing was clear: his life was no longer just his own, it belonged to the child, to the future, and to a galaxy he never thought he would be part of. A bond beyond worlds. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed inside him. As he stood beside the alien child, he felt a strange warmth growing between them. It was a connection he couldn't explain, yet it was undeniable. The child, small and seemingly fragile, seemed to radiate a quiet power that Jack could feel deep within his own chest. It wasn't physical, but something else, something that spoke directly to his soul. They walked through the ship's corridors, Jack's footsteps echoing in the silence. He glanced at the child, who looked up at him with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of centuries. Their silence was thick, but not uncomfortable. It felt like an understanding was growing between them, one that needed no words. The child reached for Jack's hand, and he instinctively took it. The warmth he felt earlier grew stronger, and a new sense of determination filled him. "Is this the power the Queen spoke of?" Jack wondered aloud, but the child didn't answer. They didn't need to. Jack understood in that moment. The child wasn't just the key to the future, he was also the answer to everything Jack had ever wanted. Every question about his place in the world, every doubt about his life, seemed to fade away, as if they were no longer important. What mattered now was this bond, this mission. As they reached the end of the hallway, the door to a large chamber opened before them. Inside was a room filled with strange symbols, glowing softly. The walls pulsed with a faint light, the air thick with an energy Jack couldn't quite place. It was the heart of the ship, and as soon as they entered, Jack felt the power in the room flood through him. It was like the room was alive. The very space around them seemed to hum with energy. The child walked toward the center of the room, stopping in front of a pedestal. Upon it was a small, crystal-like object, glowing with an eerie light. It was unlike anything Jack had ever seen. The child's hand reached out, and when they touched the object, a burst of light erupted from it. Jack instinctively stepped back, shielding his eyes. The light was blinding, but not painful. It was pure, almost alive. When the light faded, Jack opened his eyes to find the child standing still, holding the object in their hands. The crystal was no longer glowing, but Jack could feel its power. It was as if the object had transferred something into the child, or perhaps, into both of them. Jack could feel the energy coursing through his body, as if the power was flowing between them, sharing itself. Jack instinctively reached out, his hand brushing against the child's. And in that moment, everything changed. A vision flashed before Jack's eyes, a world burning, galaxies being torn apart by unseen forces. He saw himself standing alone, facing a vast army of shadows, their eyes glowing with malice. He felt fear, but also courage. Then, the vision shifted, and he saw the child, standing tall, radiating the same energy he now felt inside himself. The child's eyes met Jack's, and the fear disappeared, replaced by a deep, unwavering confidence. "You are not alone," a voice whispered. Jack's heart raced, and he turned to see no one, but the voice was clear, coming from within him, the voice of the child. "We are bound, Jack," the child continued, their lips not moving, but Jack heard the words clearly in his mind. "Our fates are tied together. The power we share will be our strength, but it is also a burden, one we must bear together." Jack didn't understand, but the words resonated with him. The child's words felt true, and the weight of them settled over him like a heavy cloak. He could no longer deny what was happening. He could no longer pretend that he wasn't part of something much bigger than himself. The child slowly turned toward him, their eyes filled with trust. "We must prepare," the child said aloud, their voice soft but filled with an unspoken authority. "There are many who will come for us, the forces that seek to destroy me, and everything we stand for, will stop at nothing. They will try to tear us apart, but we will fight, we will face them together, and when the time comes, we will be ready." Jack nodded, his heart swelling with a sense of purpose. He had no idea what the future held, or what he was truly up against, but with the child by his side, he knew one thing: he wasn't going to let anyone tear them apart. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The child reached out again, this time placing their small hand on Jack's chest. Jack felt the warmth again, but this time, it was different. It wasn't just the power, it was something deeper, something that tied them together in ways Jack didn't fully understand, but it was real. He could feel it in his bones, in his heart. "We are bound," the child repeated, and this time, Jack believed it. The bond between them was no longer just a connection, it was a part of who they both were. The time for questions was over, the time for action had begun, and Jack knew that whatever came next, he would face it with the child by his side. The bond between them would be their strength, and together, they would fight for their future. The rising threat. The peace that had settled over Jack and the child was short-lived. The energy in the ship had changed, the hum of the walls now replaced by a low, ominous vibration. Jack looked at the child, who stood still, their gaze fixed ahead, as if sensing something Jack couldn't see. "What's happening?" Jack asked, his voice tense. The child turned slowly, their eyes dark and distant. "They are coming," was all they said. The words felt like a cold whisper in the air, but Jack knew what they meant. They weren't alone anymore. In the distance, beyond the ship's glowing walls, a small fleet of ships appeared on the horizon. The ships were massive, their dark silhouettes against the stars like looming giants. They were unlike anything Jack had ever seen. Their sleek, angular design seemed to absorb the light around them, creating an unnatural shadow in the space. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. These ships weren't friendly. He knew it without needing to be told. "We have to move, now," Jack said, his heart racing. The child didn't respond, but Jack could see the shift in their posture. It was a subtle change, but one that spoke volumes. The child was ready, Jack wasn't. The alien queen's voice echoed in Jack's mind, as clear as if she were standing right beside him. "You are not ready for this, Jack. The enemies you face are far more dangerous than you know. They will not stop until they have what they want." Jack's pulse quickened. "What do they want?" he asked aloud, but the queen didn't answer. The ships continued to draw closer, their dark forms looming larger with each passing second. Jack felt the weight of the queen's warning on his shoulders. He wasn't prepared, he didn't have the knowledge, the strength, or the resources to face what was coming. But the child had something Jack didn't. Jack turned to the child, who now stood in the center of the ship's command room, looking more powerful than ever. The child's body shimmered with an energy Jack couldn't quite understand. It was like a living force, radiating from them in waves. "They're coming for you, aren't they?" Jack said. The child nodded, their expression unwavering. "Yes," was all they said, but Jack could see the gravity in their eyes. The child wasn't afraid, not in the way Jack had expected. It was as if they had known this day would come. Suddenly, the ship's alarms blared, a loud, shrieking sound that rattled the walls. The lights flickered, and Jack's heart skipped a beat. "They found us," Jack muttered. He wasn't sure who they were, but he had a sinking feeling it was no coincidence that the alien fleet was closing in on them. The child turned to Jack, their hand outstretched. This time, Jack didn't hesitate. He took the child's hand, feeling the warmth of their touch. The power that coursed through the child's body sent a shock of energy through Jack. It was like nothing he had ever felt. It was the power of the stars, the force that could reshape the very fabric of the universe. "We need to go now," the child said, their voice urgent. The ship's hull groaned as it began to shake, the powerful forces outside pushing against it. Jack looked to the child for guidance, unsure of what to do next, but the child's expression was calm, determined. "Follow me," they said, and without a word, they began to move toward the exit. Jack followed closely behind, every step feeling like a leap into the unknown. As they made their way through the ship's corridors, Jack couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation. They were about to face something far more dangerous than anything he had ever known, something that could destroy everything they had worked so hard to protect. The child led him into a large hangar bay, where a small shuttle waited, its sleek design a stark contrast to the menacing ships closing in on them. The shuttle's engines hummed with power, ready to launch. "We don't have much time," the child said, as they climbed into the shuttle. Jack followed quickly, sitting beside the child. The door closed behind them with a soft hiss, and the shuttle powered up. Within moments, they were lifting off, the ship's exterior trembling as it fought against the forces pulling it down. Jack felt the entire ship shake as it was bombarded by enemy fire. The shuttle shot forward, breaking through the atmosphere and into the vastness of space. Outside the shuttle's window, Jack could see the alien fleet in full view now, its dark ships looming ominously in the distance. They were outnumbered, outmatched, but the child wasn't afraid, and for the first time since all of this had started, Jack realized something. The child wasn't just the protector, they were the key to everything. the power they held could tip the scales in ways Jack couldn't even begin to understand. "We can't run forever," Jack said, his voice low. "What do we do now?" The child turned to him, their eyes filled with quiet certainty. "We fight," they said. The final battle. The shuttle tore through space, its engines roaring as it pushed toward the heart of the alien fleet. Jack gripped the seat, feeling the force of acceleration pressing him into his chair. He glanced at the child, whose calm expression hadn't shifted. Despite the chaos outside, the child seemed unaffected, as if they knew something Jack didn't. As the fleet came into full view, Jack felt a wave of dread wash over him. The ship stretched as far as the eye could see, their dark hulls reflecting the cold light of distant stars. They were immense, terrifying, and outnumbered them by far. "We're outmatched," Jack said, his voice tight, but the child didn't reply. They simply looked ahead, their hand resting lightly on the shuttle's controls. Jack could feel the child's power growing. It was subtle, yet unmistakable. There was a sense of purpose radiating from them, a quiet certainty that Jack couldn't ignore. It was the kind of power that could shift the balance of the entire galaxy, and Jack, despite his fear, realized that it wasn't just the child's destiny at stake anymore. It was his too. "We have no choice," Jack continued, his voice steady now. "We fight or we die." The child turned to him, their gaze soft but filled with an ancient wisdom that seemed to speak directly to his soul. "We are not alone, Jack, we never were." The child's words rang out with such weight that Jack felt them deep in his bones. He didn't understand, but the unease in his chest began to fade, as if the child's calm was transferring to him. A quiet hum filled the shuttle as the child activated the ship's weapons. The moment the systems powered up, Jack knew that something was different. This wasn't a normal battle, this wasn't just about survival. The child's eyes glowed for a split second, and Jack felt it, the sudden surge of energy that pulsed through him like a tidal wave. He had no idea what the child had just done, but his mind was suddenly flooded with information: the ship's weapon systems, the alien fleet's weak points, the path they needed to take to survive. Everything clicked into place, as if the child had unlocked something inside of him. "Stay with me," the child said, their voice steady and sure. "We have only one chance to strike, we must take their leader down." Jack nodded, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He wasn't just fighting for his own survival anymore, he was fighting for the child, for the future, and for a galaxy that seemed on the brink of destruction. The shuttle shot forward, cutting through the fleet's defenses like a knife through butter. Jack felt the power of the ship's weapons as they tore into the alien ships, the explosions lighting up the darkness of space. The child's calm presence guided him, their subtle adjustments to the ship's movements making every shot count. But the fleet wasn't backing down. They fought fiercely, sending wave after wave of fire toward them. One of the alien ships came into their path, its massive form blocking their way. Jack barely had time to react. The ship's weapons fired a deadly beam, aimed straight at the shuttle. Without thinking, Jack pushed the controls forward, taking the shuttle into a steep dive. The beam narrowly missed, but the force of the near miss sent them spiraling out of control. The child didn't panic. Instead, they reached out, placing a hand on Jack's shoulder. Jack felt the same warmth from before, the power of the child flowing into him, guiding him. "Steady," the child whispered, and just like that, Jack regained control. The shuttle leveled out, and he locked onto the enemy ship's vulnerable spot. With a deep breath, he fired. The blast hit the alien ship's core, causing a chain reaction that sent it tumbling into the fleet behind it. But the battle was far from over. The alien ships were regrouping, and their forces were still overwhelming. Jack's heart pounded as the shuttle weaved through enemy fire, dodging and returning fire in a deadly dance. "Where is their leader?" Jack shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. "Where do we go?" The child's gaze shifted, locking onto the largest ship in the fleet, a dark, menacing vessel that seemed to exude an unnatural power. "There," the child said simply, "that is where we must go." Without hesitation, Jack set the course. The shuttle rocketed toward the enemy flagship. It was heavily defended, but Jack could feel the child's presence guiding him. Their power, their confidence, helped him push past his fear. They would succeed, because they had no other choice. As they approached the flagship, the child's eyes closed, and the shuttle's energy systems flickered. Jack felt a jolt as the ship's weapons powered down. "What's happening?" Jack asked, panic rising. The child opened their eyes, their voice soft but full of authority. "I need to focus," they said, "the final strike requires all my energy, you must trust me, Jack." Jack's pulse raced, but he nodded, trusting the child completely. The flagship loomed larger before them, its massive cannons aimed directly at them. Jack's hand hovered over the controls, but the child spoke again, this time with a calm certainty, "Now." Jack slammed the controls forward, sending the shuttle directly into the heart of the flagship. He held his breath as the enemy ships closed in, but then, in the blink of an eye, the child unleashed their power. A wave of energy erupted from them, tearing through space, splitting the flagship in half. The explosion sent shockwaves through the fleet, and for a moment, everything went silent. The enemy fleet crumbled, their ships falling apart, scattered by the child's devastating attack. The battle was over, but Jack knew that this was only the beginning. The new beginning. The silence that followed the explosion was almost deafening. The vastness of space seemed to hold its breath. Jack's hand still gripped the shuttle's controls, his fingers trembling with the aftershock of the battle. He couldn't believe what had just happened. The enemy fleet, the darkness that had threatened to consume them all, had been shattered in an instant. The child sat beside him, their eyes closed, as if they had already accepted the cost of what had been done. Jack looked over at them, still in awe of the power they had unleashed. The energy that had flowed through the child had been unlike anything Jack could have imagined. It was raw, primal, but controlled. It was power that bent the laws of space and time itself. "We did it," Jack said quietly, almost to himself. The child opened their eyes, and for the first time, Jack saw a flicker of emotion in their gaze. "Yes," the child replied, their voice soft but filled with an ancient weariness. "But the battle is never truly over. There will always be those who seek to take what is ours, those who want to control the power we hold." Jack felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had known that victory wouldn't bring peace, but hearing the child say it out loud made it all the more real. "What happens now?" Jack asked, "What do we do next?" The child looked at him, their gaze piercing. "We rebuild," they said simply, "but not just this galaxy. The universe itself is broken, Jack, and it's our responsibility to fix it." Jack blinked, unsure of what the child meant. "Fix it?" he repeated. "How? I barely understand what we've already done. How can we fix everything?" The child's eyes softened, and they placed a hand on Jack's. The warmth between them flared once more, a bond that neither time nor battle could sever. "You don't have to understand everything right now, Jack," the child said, "but you will. The power you have, the power we share, will guide us, and together, we will shape the future. Our bond is the key, and it will be our strength." Jack nodded, feeling the weight of the child's words settle over him. He didn't know how or when, but he knew that his life had changed forever. The universe they had just fought to protect was vast, and they had only just begun to understand the forces at play. "We have allies," the child continued, "others who will stand with us, those who are waiting for the right moment to act, and there are enemies, more powerful than any we've faced, who will rise from the ashes of this war, but we will not be unprepared, not again." Jack felt a surge of determination. For the first time in what felt like forever, he wasn't afraid. He had the child by his side, and together, they could face anything. The shuttle drifted in the vast emptiness of space, the remnants of the battle floating like broken shards around them. Jack felt the weight of everything that had happened, the lives lost, the enemies defeated, and the power that had been unlocked. But there was something else, something new, something that burned within him, a desire to move forward, to make things right. "We'll rebuild," Jack said, his voice firm. "We'll protect this galaxy, and whatever comes next, we'll face it together." The child's expression softened, a slight smile playing at the corners of their lips. "Together," they echoed. "Yes, Jack, together, but this is only the beginning. There is more to be done, more worlds to save, more lives to change, and we will change them, starting with ours." Jack looked out at the stars, the vastness of space stretching out before them. He felt small, but not insignificant. He was part of something much larger now, something that couldn't be undone. He had found his purpose, and he knew it was only the start of an incredible journey. As the shuttle continued its course through the stars, Jack and the child sat side by side, no words needed between them. They both knew that the road ahead would be long, and it would be dangerous, but they were ready to face the unknown, to confront the darkness, and to fight for the future of the universe. Because together, They were unstoppable.